Hello and welcome to WWJPS. This is your host, Vanessa Pinto. So today we are going to focus on DARPA. What is DARPA, you say?
DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, is a pioneering agency within the United States Department of Defense responsible for spearheading groundbreaking research and development projects.
Now, you've heard me mention DARPA a few times, and usually when I talk about it, it's in reference to Facebook, and we'll get there. But now knowing kind of what it is, Jeff Bezos' grandfather was also in it. Let's see how interesting you find that as we go on.
In response to the Soviet Union's successful launch of the Sputnik satellite, DARPA was originally known as the Advanced Research Projects Agency, IARPA. Its primary mission was to ensure that the United States maintained a technological edge in defense and security, particularly in light of the perceived Soviet technological superiority. Over the years, DARPA has been at the forefront of innovation, pioneering revolutionary technologies.
Funny, all of these things look like what the oligarch bro billionaires do, right? They created all of that fancy stuff that they are pushing onto all of us, right? It was their brilliant billionaire mescaline ketamine-ridden minds, right?
That have reshaped the modern world. One of its most notable achievements is the development of ARPANET, the precursor to the internet. ARPANET, created in the late...
Bingo!
ARPANET, or the ARPA network, was the precursor to the internet that we all know today. Ideas and research on a worldwide computer network started in the 60s, back then communicating with...
So started in the 60s, right? Something that we use religiously today that wouldn't have even been thought of in the 60s. And so that's one of the reasons that they say to us, these people are beyond 20 years ahead. That's why people predicted what is exactly happening today in 1994. Nothing is new. All of this is done before. And wouldn't it make far more sense that a think tank would create the internet and social media accounts in order to track us, because clearly that's why it was invented. Now, what we were sold it, very different, right? I mean, it's only really now that this is coming out.
People across the country was still possible. It was just complicated and tedious. For example, if someone was talking to two people at once over the computer network, but they were in two geographically different locations, two machines would have to be used. ARPANET sought to make communications to several locations possible on one machine.
Right, and again, they sell it for these very interesting things, but no, it just allowed them to track us so much easier. I mean, look, it's brilliant. It's truly brilliant.
Taylor, who is known as a pioneer that paved the way for the internet, came to DARPA first. He convinced the director to give him a budget so that he can develop the ARPANET. It took 2 years for Taylor to solidify a plan and get it signed off by the director.
You know whose name is not mentioned? Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, Alex Karp, Mark Zuckerberg. There's some other freaks I'm missing, but none of those names are being mentioned right now. In 2003,
DARPA launched a project called LifeLog. Its mission, create a detailed record of a person's entire life: photos, videos, emails, biometrics, purchases, and location. The goal? Relationships, decisions, and behavior patterns. Just 1 year later, in 2004, the program was suddenly shut down. That same month, Facebook launched.
It truly is, and I think that's why salespeople make the amount of money that they do. It is all in the presentation, folks. Just like a good closing argument, just like anything else. When you are able to manipulate the perception of something, to make it benign, to make it help, to make it whatever you want that person to believe it is, they'll give up everything willingly. We all did, myself included. We all put our photos, we all put our children, our pets, our food, our trips, our everything, right? And at the time oh, how cool, we can share. I mean, that's what they told us it was for.
The Pentagon said the timing was a coincidence, but some insiders weren't convinced. LifeLog vanished, in name, but its architecture, it lives on in your feed, your phone, and your daily scroll. The question isn't whether you're being tracked. It's how much you're volunteering. Welcome to the Forbidden Index.
Well, and also the thing is that now we're understanding, because again, I get arguments all the time from people. Well, but the phone was tracking and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yes. We didn't know this is what they were going to use it for. We didn't know they were going to track it down to our breathing, our heart rate, to women's menstrual cycles in order to mine data to sell to companies, which can now circumvent search warrants and HIPAA regulations. This is not something many of us conceived of, at least not myself. So let's listen to this man lie.
Here's my reflection on this, and I mean, I'm curious for your view on if you think this is just crazy, but like when I was getting started, I remember the night that I launched the original Facebook website at my college, right? It was just a website for my college to basically, it was literally a Facebook, right? It's like
Do you love how he tells this with such details? This is what I mean when I say that everyone's a fucking actor. So what I love is the ability that he has to lie here. And, because he's such a fucking genius, he came up with this. Now, he was handed it. My question is why. I think, and I have to do a bit more research into Zuckerberg, but I believe his family came out of, there's some intelligence there, or they're linked in that community in some way. But people constantly defend these men, right? I get a lot of, you just need to try harder. No, none of these men actually did anything that they said they would do, and people still blindly follow them. Now, a good majority of us are realizing what has happened. And see, here's the thing. These men aren't brilliant. They were given a product to sell. They sold it well, and now they're trillionaires and they think they're God. That's a fucking problem.
Didn't have a paper Facebook, and I was like, this is stupid. Let's just make a version where people can input their own stuff, because people like expressing stuff about themselves and people are really interested.
I understand now why people think he's a reptilian.
Zuckerberg was 19 years old. He was still pretty introverted. Sean did most of the talking. So if you base it, people always
look at the face in the square. Yeah, he invented Facebook. That face. And then the one behind him, the homosexual who's Catholic, who believes in the anti-pricing and the long game, vengeful motherfucker. So now he, handpicked by the CIA with his good pal Alex Karp, they also did PayPal, the PayPal mafia, right? And he wants to talk about how he just found this kid, and they're all just found one another, right?
Reid Hoffman and I had spent about a year looking at all these social networking sites.
Yes, all these men knew Jeffrey Epstein. All these men associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Peter Thiel got $40 million from him. Reid Hoffman got a lot more money than that from him. And plus, allegedly, a lot of little girls suffered because of him.
Before that, so we were ready to write the check before we met, and didn't really matter what people were going to say. Zuckerberg was 19 years old.
March 16th, 2018. The U.S. government's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, commonly known as DARPA, announces a bold initiative to develop what they call next-generation non-surgical neurotechnology. It is designed to allow the human brain...
Again. Isn't that Neuralink from Elon Musk, or am I crazy?
...to directly interface with machines.
We know that DARPA is exploring human-machine interfaces that include direct connections between the brain.
It should terrify all of us what DARPA has their hands in, and what else we're using that they've created that we have no idea that they've done. I mean, it's destabilizing in a way to understand how methodical all of this has been. It's frightening.
And outside systems. That's been from the beginning of DARPA's information technology mission, and it continues to this day. DARPA has created some of the most influential technologies of all time, things that we use and take for granted every day, including the project that became the internet. They've created self-driving cars, stealth technology, GPS that fits in your pocket.
Isn't this all the things that we were told those men created? Huh?
That's DARPA's specialty, to imagine the future and create it.
A new technology that is actually very much on the verge of being a reality that is being fielded is we could have a sensor maybe on the surface of our head, or maybe implanted somewhere in our body, in our brain, or something that allows us to interact directly with our communications gear, our processing gear, our weapon systems, and so on.
This morning, Elon Musk announcing that for the first time, his company Neuralink has implanted a brain chip in a human. Musk saying the person is recovering well. Initial results show promising neuron spike detection. Neuralink's goal is to help paralysis patients communicate by connecting.
Looks awfully familiar. And again, is it that Elon Musk is a trillionaire because he's so brilliant? You know, he wasn't coddled by his father, who's a pedophile, and Elon's a potential alleged pedophile, or wanting to be a pedophile, who also has grok, who loves to talk about pedophiles. But ultimately, is this a man who's brilliant? Or is this a man who's corrupt and is handed a lot of different things? And now, with his ties to Trump and all of the government contracts, that money is coming from the taxpayers. These people are grifters, folks. They're the best of their kind. They're not fucking geniuses.
Their brain to a computer.
The device is designed to interpret your neural activity so you can operate a computer or a smartphone by simply thinking.
People paralyzed from stroke, from traumatic brain injury, or a spinal cord injury could see the benefits.
This would be a major game changer if it were to be proven to be safe and effective.
The FDA approved.
And Jeffrey Epstein, two American billionaires, one shaping global technology, the other cultivating elite networks through leverage, access, and scandal. Epstein's calendars show several meetings with Thiel, while Epstein repeatedly raised Palantir to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
However, he has a company called Palantir. So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of...
Isn't that interesting? How Jeffrey Epstein... So my point, if no one can fucking follow it, the main reason I come back to Jeffrey Epstein is not because he was the man that was involved in everything. It's because the elites run the world. The only thing that we really got from him beyond disturbing nightmares and trauma that those poor women and children we can't even conceive of. He actually gave us a paper trail of how these people think, how they work, what they do. Why do you think the world is divided right now? Because some people like me are like, holy shit. Oh my God. And I admit, I literally didn't see this. I was too busy working 40 to 60 hours a week, plus going to school. They keep us busy. It's funny. They keep us busy.
Even years after Epstein's 2008 conviction for sex offenses, they scheduled dinners and organized meetings, sometimes involving other high profiles. Following these meetings, Jeffrey Epstein invested about...
So essentially what I also find interesting is these people, even the ones that claim, oh, I didn't know, and I didn't participate in the child trafficking. Yeah, no, you knew. Everyone knew. And they have less of an issue doing that than dealing with the poor or helping the world be a better place, right? They're like, oh, it's here to kids. Cool.
$40 million in venture funds co-funded by Peter Thiel. Thiel later founded Palantir, whose technology and surveillance tools are used by intelligence agencies and Israeli military in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. In just over 2 decades, Palantir grew from a CIA-funded startup.
Hello, CIA-funded startup.
Into a multi-billion-dollar data power embedded in governments, militaries, and public services worldwide. Today, Palantir plays a growing role in the UK state, with contracts spanning the...
Understand that if global ID and all of that goes, Palantir will be in everyone's fucking business, no matter what corner of the earth you find to hide in. It won't matter. That is why countries need to be so insistent. That's why the people in the UK are pissed that Palantir is in their medical records. That's why in America we're pissed that Palantir is in our food. What the fuck do these people need to be up in our business with everything? Why are they suddenly God now? Because the people are mad. So now bread and circus won't work. They just need to kill us or make us comply.
NHS, the Minister of Defense, and local government systems. In return, Palantir has received a nearly £190 million.
So again, are these men brilliant because they didn't create any of this, or are they just simply corrupt and bankrupt of any sort of empathy?
In the UK, while independent investigations suggest the true value of historic and current deals could exceed £670 million. Although protests over Palantir's influence are increasing across the UK, it remains one of the most powerful private data contractors in the British public sector. Palantir moves quietly from wealth to tech to government. Who benefits from this power dynamic?
Oh, I think we all know, and it's definitely not the people. DARPA's been around a long time.
Listen, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up to her is because someone was hearing her voice, ventriloquism.
It's been done to me, and I don't know why. I don't know who's doing it, what the purpose is.
Now watch this, because what he just described might explain something that was caught on camera during a U.S. House hearing. Look at the woman standing behind Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, and pay close attention to what happens when she speaks.
First, I wanted to introduce into the record page 55 from the committee's interview with FBI employee Roya Demlow, who you just spoke about, which took place on July 17, 2023. They would be representing what I said because I don't have much knowledge of that. They would be misrepresenting.
All you have to do is use voice morphing.
This Harvard scientist exposes claims about CIA mind control weapons still being used today. And what you're about to witness might explain.
So once again, and this is about DARPA, that's a DARPA, what do you call it? He spoke out. He's a whistleblower. These people are involved in everything. I mean, from mind control, MKUltra, all that stuff. And they created what these crazy ketamine, cocaine-filled pieces of shit are in control of, and they actually think they created it, and that's a problem.
Far more about the world we're living in than most people realize.
But if you cognitively model someone, you have a brain print, like a fingerprint, and if you use autocorrelation techniques, and there's a way, and we'll just kind of wave our hand, functional MRI that you can do at a distance.
One step further. This is, and the Department of Justice is the Epstein files. We are looking at, I will put the number in the video details along with all the links, but one thing. It's file number EFTA 028035525, and this was an exhibit. So, given my former incarnation as a DC madam, I followed the tribulations, trial, and death of Deborah Jean Palfrey with intense interest. I marveled at the striking similarities between our cases. Both Palfrey and Vincent were hit multiple federal racketeering influence RICO charges, right? Now, in Vincent's case, they included redacted H.W. Bush, and in Palfrey's case, Dick Cheney and CIA Director Porter Gross. Vincent tends to agree with those who believe Palfrey was murdered in order to ensure her silence. WMR's investigation of the Palfrey suicide supports Vincent's contention. Eventually, Vincent's escort service would count among its frequent flyers Representatives Barney and Larry Craig. Scientology's L. Ron Hubbard once, of course, was an integral part of the CIA's MKUltra program, which used sexual blackmail in addition to drugs and psychological pressure on its targets. However, unlike the unfortunate fate of Jean Palfrey, Vincent loved to tell his story. Vincent was facing federal prosecution in 1990. It was the same year that Palfrey started up her female escort service with the CIA, Kyle's Dusty Fago being her brief chief liaison to the agency. Sound familiar? All these things go together.
I think the biohybrids, because when I say that thing they have done, right? So for anyone who isn't familiar with DARPA, right? It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, a mouthful.
They added the D
they
later,
added the
right?
D for defense, but it is the most powerful most secretive, most productive military agency in the world. And I kind of believe that before I wrote the book, most people had not heard of DARPA. I mean, I think, or at least when I was doing press for it, it was like shocking.
I think you're right about that.
So that's fascinating. And part of that has to do with DARPA likes the public perception of, that they like do all these things for the good of humanity. And actually, we know from the declassified documents again, or actually this was not declassified. This was the statement by the first SecDef at the time, the SecDef at the time that the DARPA was created, Neil McElroy, an advertising executive who became a Secretary of Defense. He said he went to Congress to get the funding, and he said this agency is going to create the vast weapon systems of the future. That is what DARPA does. They are always 20 years ahead of anything that you or I know. So any technology that is like, what the hell was that I just saw and you're not supposed to have seen, that's DARPA. Right?
They were doing Neuralink in the 90s, right?
They are always...
Not the billionaires. Again, the billionaires are just paid to be corrupt. They're like the politicians, except they like a lot more attention and they're really keen on doing a lot more drugs publicly. If you made it this far, folks, drop a black heart.
Well, they should be afraid of some things. I think the creeping advance of totalitarianism is something that could engulf us all. If we're not very careful, it's creeping, and is being rolled out in parts of the world, particularly China. But not only. I read a very interesting report by a Chinese watcher saying, beware, you in the West, because the only difference between us and you is you've got all the technology, but not yet a central government imposing it.
Not yet. There is time. Pay attention, folks. Beware, beware. The oligarchs are coming.